afternoon, everyone. Audible? Yes. Okay. Durkheim is over. Okay. But the spirit of Durkheim shall remain alive throughout the journey that we are going to undertake. Let us try to understand before jumping to Karl Marx. Um, and Karl Marx is another journey. To understand Karl Marx, you need to understand George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel. To understand Hegel, you need to understand Immanuel Kant. To understand Immanuel Kant, you need to understand Plato. To understand Plato, you need to understand Socrates. But इतना करना है क्या? अरे कोई जरूरी नहीं है. We are students of sociology. We are not here to become philosophers. So when we will deal with Karl Marx, we will limit ourselves in terms of philosophical discussion to Hegel, not beyond it. Okay. Because Immanuel Kant is anyhow someone who I would have to deal with when I'll teach you Max Weber. But before moving on to discussions on Marx, let me discuss few things about Durkheim. First of all, it is very important for us to understand the critique of Durkheim. And even before critique, I would like to also highlight relevance of Durkheim in contemporary era. In the sense, something that can make you understand Durkheim more clearly. When you are able to understand their work with the help of something that is going on, then it becomes easier for you not only to understand his work properly, but also to have a proper applied knowledge of his work. Okay. Now, the topic that I would like to touch upon is briefly COVID 19 and Durkheim. Okay. COVID 19 is obviously one of the hottest topic and will remain so for the next decade, till next decade. Okay, it is also a landmark movement, not movement, landmark movement in the evolution of our societies. The fact is, did Durkheim has did Durkheim have anything to offer to us through his theoretical work to understand COVID-19? Yes. And remember, Durkheim, Marx, and Weber, these three scholars are considered as the classical scholar. Classical scholar means someone who can never be critiqued. These are those people who would never be critiqued, in the sense you may critique them to whatsoever length that you may like. At the end of the day, they would still hold their relevance. That is why Marx may be dead. Marxism is still very much alive. Weber may be dead. Bureaucracy and the disenchanted world, the highly rational thinking that we have adopted, is nothing but something that Max Weber had already reflected in his writing. Durkheim may be dead, but the things that he has described are very much relevant till date. COVID-19. When lockdown was imposed in India for the first time, what happened? The moment lockdown was imposed, it was nothing but sudden change in the economy. Sudden change in the economy. In the sense, economic shutdown had happened. People had lost their jobs overnight. Many people who are specifically people like migrant workers. I'm not talking about you people who are privileged. Okay. Talking about largely the migrant people who had to go back to their homes. Reverse migration, a pattern that we witnessed. Okay. Many people lost their jobs. And many people, although they did not lose their jobs, but still they lost their income. They had to face cut in their salaries. Okay. And when you face cut in your salaries, you are not able to sustain your home or to take care of your members, family members. Okay. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is lockdown imposition led to sudden change or breakdown in the economic activities. Right? The sudden change or breakdown in the economic activities also had repercussions on sudden change in the social life. Sudden change in the social life. Okay. Remember, you must have seen or heard a lot about doctors treating on COVID patients. Okay. So many doctors started coming into news. Okay. That was something that we had never seen, so many doctors coming on news channels every day. That had become a very normal phenomena. Till date, it is a very normal phenomenon that every day you are having doctors being interviewed on TV channels. Okay. Before that, we did not have doctors coming so regularly on TV or newspapers or describing or telling people on YouTube what has to be done, what not to be done. Okay. These doctors had assumed a new form of medical warriors. These are our warriors. Okay. We started calling them medical warriors. Okay. But imagine the warriors that we have at the border, they are fighting for us. They may even lose their lives in the cause of fighting for the nation and for us. And these warriors also lost their lives. These medical warriors also lost their lives in the cause of fighting against COVID and for us. Now tell me, is there any difference between the suicide between army soldier and the doctors? Doctors committed altruistic suicide. They knew. They knew they may lose their lives and still they treated us. Just like an Indian army soldier knows he may lose his life till he is fighting for us. There is no difference. And therefore, doctors committed altruistic suicide. Agreed? So, now I'm coming back to this also, but I'm talking about suicide gradually. I'll try to interlink everything. Okay. What all exactly happened during lockdown? Okay. And what is still happening till date? There were many people who once got to know that they have contracted coronavirus. What happened? their family members. All the family members put that person in isolation, in quarantine for 14 days. Okay, nobody would go to see him, touch him. Okay, just stay away from him 14 days. Now, for 14 days or even more than that, okay, that person was in isolation. That means loss of integration. He had started feeling like as if he is a burden now. He may lose his life. He had lost all the social ties that he had with his family members, with all his peer group, friends, colleagues. Okay, that is why we call this quarantine. Quarantine means loss of ties. Loss of ties, social ties. Okay, this is what quarantine literally implies. And when you have lost social ties, there are many cases, 15% of the suicide, according to latest data, something that I'm also going to show you. Okay, 15% of suicide committed during lockdown were egoistic suicide. Okay, people did not really die due to COVID per se. COVID did have repercussion in an indirect fashion. The fact, moreover, in the sense more and over above the COVID, was the loss of social ties, which actually developed suicidal tendencies among those people. Okay, 15% of the people. This is what I'm saying. Okay, I'll show you the data also. Anomic suicide. Now let me talk about anomic suicide. When does anomic suicide happen? When you have sudden change. Remember? Sudden change in the economy. Okay, sudden change in the sense, suddenly either you become millionaire or suddenly either you become slumdog. Okay, by suddenly. Now, when lockdown was imposed, sudden change or breakdown in the economic activities. Without any notice, lockdown was imposed. People were not given enough time to prepare themselves. Most of the people who were victim of the sudden imposition of the lockdown were migrant workers. And most of the migrant workers lost their lives while going back to their home. Reverse migration. This was nothing but a clear-cut case of anomic suicide. Clear-cut case of anomic suicide. Okay, now when a sociologist looks at COVID-19, specifically when Durkheim, a follower of Durkheim, okay, like see, I am not follower of any scholar. Okay, my job is to help you understand each one of them. I do not follow any one of them. Okay, my job is to describe what they are telling you in a simple language. Okay, so if I am following Durkheim, let us assume I am a follower of Durkheim. I would say Durkheim is still very much relevant, and this is very much reflected in something that has been happening for the last 2 years. Okay. Due to lockdown, the social ties had gotten so much weakened. People were not allowed to meet anyone outside. Integrative ties had weakened. The social forces of integration had weakened. Okay, although there is another perspective to it, that within the household, integration force had gotten increased to another level. In the sense, husbands were now supporting wives, okay, in the household chores. Okay, these were also the things that we saw, but this was nothing but a class privilege, basically. Okay, in Marxian sense. Okay, I'm not going into that. Anyhow, the fact is, social breakdown definitely had happened. Loss of integrative ties definitely had happened after the imposition of lockdown. The fact is, this loss of integrative ties also had repercussion on the solidarity, so-called organic solidarity, which is the result of interdependence between people. Now, when lockdown was imposed, the interdependence between people had gotten broken down, had completely broke down. Why? Because now people were asked to localize themselves to their households and not go beyond or go outside. Okay. So that way, interdependence had weakened or not, right? Now, you have two scenarios before you. Interdependence weakened. Interdependence weakened. Interdependence weakened. Second, loss of social ties, which means integration force weakened. Integration force weakened. How to heal these two losses, the loss of integration or the loss of interdependence? We started talking about work from home. Work from home. Work from home was nothing but a solution to the weakened organic solidarity. Okay, so work from home again established organic solidarity between all of us through computers, through webcam, through mobile phone. Technology basically helped us in cooperation with each other. So technology resulted in establishing solidarity between all of us once again. क्या बात है, डरखाइम की क्या बात है. वो आदमी, he has written everything 200 years back and still he is very much relevant. Nobody can question him. Okay. But you guys also know this very well. One fine day, Mr. Modi announced that at 9 p.m. we would light candles, diyas, and before that, he had also encouraged all of us to bang thalis. Okay. In order to motivate the medical warriors who are fighting for us. What is this happening? This was nothing. Collective gathering, collective practices, collective acting right at the balcony all over India. This is what was happening. I am Durkheim, I have descended from Mars. I am not able to understand what these idiots are doing. At the balcony, someone is beating drums, someone is clapping, someone is beating thalis. What is happening? But I have to rid myself of all the preconceived notions and consider this as nothing but collective gathering, rituals which are generating collective effervescence amongst them. And once this collective effervescence generates, they lose their senses. They might even start cracking firecrackers at the night. Some people may, these are idiots. No, it is the charge of collective effervescence, which is something over and above each of these individuals. They are not in possession of their intellect or their faculty, mental faculty. So we can never call them idiots. Especially when you are reading Durkheim, you cannot. Okay. And what exactly all these things helped in establishing? These things helped in establishing, in reaffirming the collective social ties which had gotten broken down. So collective rituals helped in reaffirming social ties which had broken down due to imposition of lockdown. Okay, it was Nothing but collective consciousness, collective effervescence, collective gathering, everything. And what was that one thing which they had sacralized? All these people who were banging thalis, beating drums, burning firecracker or lighting diyas. What was that one thing which all of these had sacralized? What was that one totem around which all of them had coalesced to form a moral community called as church? What was that one totem? Feeling of nationalism. नेशनलिज्म कहाँ से आ गया? तो ठीक है नेशनलिज्म है, आई मीन है, मतलब उतना मजा नहीं आया, बात ये दिया डॉक्टर, हाँ मेडिकल स्टाफ, यस द मेडिकल वॉरियर्स वर देयर टोटम्स. समझ गए? अंडरस्टूड? Simple. Now, is Durkheim relevant? Of course, and he will always remain relevant. Okay. Let me talk about farmer suicide and Durkheim. सर पीएमओ में इतना डीप सोचते हैं क्या? पीएमओ, पीएमओ, व्हाट इज पीएमओ? प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस, उनको छोड़ो तुम. We should not be concerned about what they think or what not. We should only be concerned about what Durkheim thinks. Okay, Durkheim is our hero, not those people. Okay. For the time being, these scholars are our superheroes. Okay. If you understand them properly, then you will become one of those people sitting in PMO. Okay. Sir, this correlation is very awesome. No, actually Durkheim is very awesome. Okay. You have to understand this thing that each and every scholar will always remain highly relevant. But for that, you have to have such a powerful understanding of these people. Such powerful that you would start looking, when you start looking around you, you see nothing but the things described by these people. If you study so much passionately, in sociology, definitely you are going to score at least 300. Okay. Now, farmer suicide and Durkheim. I want to show you a few things, okay, before talking about farmer suicide. I think that will help you to. In fact, I will send you one article also on farmer suicide. Just a second. There are some case studies conducted by Tata Institute of Social Research. Yes, okay, social science. Now I'm going to show you that file. It is an EPW article. Do you guys know EPW? Economic Political Weekly. Okay. Economic Political Weekly is very important journal. Okay. Why important journal? Just to tell you briefly about this journal also. You may, you might have heard people talking about Yojana and Kurukshetra. Trust me, they are useless. Okay, useless magazines. Why? Because in Yojana and Kurukshetra, you do not get sociological insights. You only get social issues. And there is a huge difference between these two things. What I just described on coronavirus, you are not going to get these things. Durkheim's application of all, you are not going to get these things on Yojana Kurukshetra. Okay. Okay. Either you have to develop it on your own or you have to follow some standard journals. Okay. And EPW is one standard journal. Now, clearly see the heading. Farmer suicides in India, Durkheim's types. इससे क्लियर कट कुछ मिलेगा? Clearly they are saying Durkheim's application on farmer suicide. Now see, let me view this. Now I'm going to show you something. Okay, I'll show you some case studies. Okay, empirical evidence. Empirical evidence in the sense on the basis of data. Egoism and anomie. Okay, the writer of this article is B.B. Mohanty. B.B. Mohanty. Okay. What is B.B. Mohanty trying to say? That he's saying that according to estimates, are you able to see this? Is it visible to all of you? Legible? Legible, na? ठीक. According to estimates, approximately 3 lakh Indian farmers committed suicide in the last 1.5 decade from 1995 to 2011. Okay. And among the states, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and Punjab have the undesirable distinction of being in the forefront. Means in these 4 states, maximum farmers have committed suicide. Okay. Out of the 3 lakh, maximum attributed to these 4 states. The findings of the studies undertaken in these states, again empirical study, okay, not common sense. Finding of the studies undertaken in these states provide an impression that indebtedness matlab, once you take loan, you are indebted to someone to repay. Okay. Finding of studies undertaken in these states provide an impression that indebtedness and crop failure, one way or the other, pushed the farmers towards economic distress and suicide. However, a critical analysis of the data presented by these studies hints that the disappointment and despair of the suicide victims associated with loss of agricultural income and indebtedness had its origin in growing social isolation and individualism. How? Let me show you some case studies. What is basically what this paragraph is telling me in a very simple language? The paragraph is telling me that largely in these 4 states, farmers have committed suicide due to economic reasons. In the sense, crop failure happened. When you produce so much of crop and crops are not sown properly or harvested due to bad weather, it is crop failure. If it is crop failure, that you are not able to sell your crops, you are not able to earn money, you are not able to sustain yourself. So it seems very economic reason for the suicide. But critical analysis hints that disappointment and despair of suicide victims had its origin in growing social isolation and individualism. Basically, the economic causes also had social reasons behind it. How? I'm going to show you case studies, the real case studies. Okay. There is one man, K. His name is, when generally when social scientists conduct research, they do not disclose names. Okay. It is called as research ethics. This is part of research ethics. Okay. K is a man who was a small farmer. He was originally a Mahad. Mahad means lower caste in Maharashtra. Okay, like Ambedkar belonged to Mahad caste. This K small farmer was originally a Mahad and he became neo-Buddhist after conversion. Okay, the story. His father and elder brother opposed his conversion. His father and elder brother told him, "Why did you convert to Buddhism?" Okay. His brother began to stay separately. He decided that I will not stay with my brother now. He belongs to some other religion. Since then, his wife and children faced criticisms. Okay, the man who converted to Buddhism, his wife and children were also isolated by the family, that these have lost their caste, lost their religion, became neo-Buddhist. We are not going to talk to them. Okay, many people started addressing that person as Lord Buddha. Okay, started mocking, Buddha ja raha hai yahan se. ठीक है. The Brahmin landlord who had leased out 9 acres of land to this person transferred the land to his elder brother. Understanding? The Brahmin person who had leased out 9 acres of land to this person, when this Brahmin landlord saw that he has converted to Buddhism, so he said, वापस लाओ land 9 acre, तुम्हारे भाई को देता हूं मैं. ठीक है. Now this man's father died suddenly following chest pain. Okay. This man's elder brother one day and others in the village criticized this man for adopting Buddhism and thereby taking the life of his father. They started telling that person, "It is only because of you that we lost our father. Had you not converted to Buddhism, our father would not have lost his life. He faced chest pain, depression, all because of you." Okay. Next year, his younger son also died. Okay, the man who converted to Buddhism, he lost his father. Next year, his younger son also died. And now this man's financial condition gradually deteriorated. Financial condition also got worse. Then his wife also fell sick. Finally, when he faced crop losses for 2 years consecutively, 96 and 97, he committed suicide. Now, was it purely economic reason? You can never say that. You have to see all these things in context, the real context of what exactly led to the isolation of that farmer from his larger family, and then which ultimately led to rise of indebtedness. Since his family had stopped supporting him, he had become highly individualistic, and he started taking loans without any suggestion from any person. He had lost all the contacts, and now he was not in a position to repay. Okay. Next. Now, this case study, this was one case study. This case study clearly shows us that suicide victim experienced a kind of egoism. What is egoism? Loss of integration. Suicide victim experienced a kind of egoism due to loss of social ties. When did he lose the social ties? When did he lose the social ties? When he converted to other religion, that is Buddhism. He had lost the social ties. His father and all the people had started mocking him like Lord Buddha, all those things. No, we will not talk to you. Okay. Experienced a kind of egoism due to loss of social ties caused by reasons like caste-based isolation. This was caste-based isolation. And when you lose your caste, you lose your religion. When you lose your religion, you lose all these things have repercussion on your economic conditions also. Okay. No, you had no support anymore from your peer groups or family members, and then ultimately you committed suicide. And this clearly shows that somehow egoism leads to anomie. Agreed or not? Egoism leads to anomie. Egoism separated first. Egoism means separation. Integration, loss of integration. This loss of integration led to anomie and suicide. Now, what kind of suicide is this now? Egoistic suicide, anomic suicide. As I told you yesterday, in the real social world, these types are not mutually exclusive. You will find a mix, because in reality, man is not, contained in one container where everything is happening to him in a limited sense. He has very large social context. Everything has to be studied properly. Only then you would come to some conclusion. Okay. One more case study I'm going to show you. Okay, I will also send you this case study on the group and upload it on the portal also. Now, let us talk about some upper caste people. Okay. Second case study. There is one high caste group where the son of household head, basically, son committed suicide simply. He was a young man separated from his family, remember this, and was cultivating 4 acres of land given as his share from the total land holding. Okay. He had incurred a crop loan of rupees 14,000 that his father repaid. Okay. He also had some private loan. He was a heavy drinker and the habit continued even after his marriage. He committed suicide on 25th September 2004. Source TISS. Okay. What is happening here? The fact is, the separation of that person from his family, ultimately, at the surface, it seems that now he is going to become independently working on his own 4 acres of land given to him by his father, but now he is separated from his father. Okay, and out of this lalach or greed that I have 4 acres, he started investing madly without any thinking rationally. See, you do not have anyone to suggest you have lost contact. Okay. The share was given to him by his father only, and he incurred the crop loan of 14,000 that his father had to repay, and he also had some private loan now, and he was heavy drinker. All these things led or amounted in a force that led him to commit suicide. Okay, and what does it show? Separation from family member, case 2. This was case 2. Okay, so there are many such case studies, approximately 6 case studies there are. Okay, so you will get to know exactly how these things work. Okay. So you can read all these things on your own. Okay, I don't need to explain these now. So if you get a question on Durkheim's application of suicide theory in Indian society, you are not going to limit yourself to farmer suicide. Remember this. Everybody is writing farmer suicide. Everybody can write. Okay. You have to also talk about, in fact, you should talk about COVID first. ठीक है, फार्मर कर देंगे वो सब, ऐसा लगता है रट्टा मार के आए हैं सब लोग. Okay. Although what you will write in farmer will be very much different, because that is based on authentic data and someone who has conducted study purely. Okay, BB Mohanty. COVID-19 is one that you should definitely talk about. Okay. And you should also talk about IITs. I told you yesterday. Students, specifically from lower caste, how they feel isolated in IITs. Why most of the people who drop out or who fail in IITs belong to lower caste. Okay. What is the reason? Okay. Now, this was all about Durkheim. Let us now briefly criticize him. Okay. criticism. There is one scholar, Gibbs. Gibbs is saying very interesting thing. He's saying that Durkheim actually told all of us that this is a scientific study that he's undertaking on suicide. He has also come up with one law of human behavior telling us that suicide rate will increase with sudden changes in economy or industrialization or with loss of integration. Okay. But I am Mr. Gibbs and I'm not able to understand how does he measure social integration? If everything is so scientific, what is the measure of social integration? ये हवा हवा में क्यों बोल देते हैं हम? लॉकडाउन लगते ही इंटीग्रेशन वीक हो गया. अरे अरे दिखाओ ना कहां कैसे वीक हुआ? वो फोर्स कहां है? कैलकुलेट. कैन यू कैलकुलेट दैट इंटीग्रेशन हैज वीकेंड? Okay. Now when I am criticizing Durkheim, I will criticize him. Okay. Remember this. So I have forgotten Durkheim now. I'm not a follower of Durkheim now. I'm a follower of Gibbs. Okay. He's simply telling me social integration and regulation are not measurable. And if it is not measurable, that means it cannot be proven wrong. If I say, with the imposition of lockdown, sudden weak down of social integration happened and this led to people committing suicide, can this thing be proven wrong? Is there any test available to prove me wrong? To prove Durkheim wrong? No. You will only collect data to show, see, integration happened, reverse migration happened, see, I told you. But there is no test available to tell that what you are saying is absolutely right. It is purely inductive reasoning that I am doing. Because I am following Durkheim, so I will do inductive reasoning only. And you also said, वाह sir, क्या बात है, कितना अच्छा अप्लाई किया. अरे but तुम लोग भूल गए कि inductive reasoning थी वो. Okay, there is no test available. So therefore Durkheim, whatever he did was nothing but pseudoscience. According to J. Gibbs. Okay. Okay. Secondly, let me talk about one person. His name is Atkinson. Do you remember? The first step of formulation of theory or hypothesis is always collection of data. You first collect data. Okay. You review literature. In the sense, the very first step is obviously research question. And what was the research question? Why different people have different suicide rates? Different group of people have different suicide rates. Why suicide rate varies from one group to another group? My research question. One more research question I had. Why suicide rate varies from one country to another country? Why suicide rate remains constant within a country? So I had so many research questions. In order to understand the answers to these questions, I had to read few books first by some people who have also conducted study on suicide. However, I was not satisfied after reading those books. Some people were very stupid. They were talking about climate. They were talking about imitation. These things were not answering my question. So I found research gap somehow. And that is why I thought that I will conduct my own research now. Okay. And I will tell that these are the loopholes in their findings. They are not able to do that. And how did I start my research? Obviously, I collected data first, data collection. I went to police station to collect my data so that nobody could challenge my authenticity or the collection of data that I did. After collecting data and all those correlation, causation, classification, I finally did multivariate analysis and then developed law of human behavior. The problem is, Atkinson is saying, Mr. Durkheim, how are you so sure that when you went to police station, the data that you got was actually the data of suicide only? How can you be so sure? So Durkheim is telling him, are you idiot? I collected from official police station. I collected that data from policemen. Policeman, IPS officer. And you think I'm lying or he's lying? Atkinson is saying, I am not saying that you or he are lying. I am just only asking you one question. The data that you collected, how can you be so sure that was data of suicide? Maybe that IPS officer registered someone's murder as suicide. How can you be so sure this is suicide only? This could have been road accident. This could have been murder. So when you are saying this is suicide, you are relying on someone's interpretation. And when you are relying on someone's interpretation, how can you say that your study is objective? क्या बात है? एटकिंसन को मान गया मैं. You know, the problem is, you might have seen CID. Okay. Savdhan India. These kind of shows. What happens in these kind of shows is, suppose you get one scene in one episode and you see one dead body lying on the pool, floating on the pool. One body floating on the pool, swimming pool. Okay. Now when you see that body, what is your first reaction? Your first reaction would be to look up. This is your first reaction, to look up, just to check. Did he or she fall from somewhere in some floor was there, some high range building was there. He or she might have fallen from there. But you do not find any building. Then what is the conclusion that you draw? Suicide. Suicide. Now, what was the reality? In what happens in psychological thrillers? You arrive at the last scene and then everything goes back. They will make you rewind your senses. In the sense, you would have to go back and see actually what led to this scene in the first place was nothing but it was actually doctored. The scene was doctored in the sense someone was killed first and then that body was, that body was simply, it was nothing but a representation. In the sense, if I'm killing someone and I do not want anyone to feel that I have committed murder, I would simply throw that dead body on that swimming pool. Just to give impression to the outsiders, it is suicide. Atkinson is only arguing one thing. Remember, this is ethno-methodological study. Ethno-methodological study of suicide. This is very important research study. Okay. Ethno-methodological. Why? No, Sohini Ganguly, Anthony Giddens double harmonetics is completely different. Okay, I'll explain you some other time. Okay. See, the fact is, when you see a dead body, you start looking for some suicide note. Okay. You start looking for some evidences. You start looking for his computer, mobile phone, just to see all the people that he might have had conversation with. Okay, and these things are giving you clue that he must have committed suicide because he just had one verbal spat or one verbal fight with this girl or that man just 1 hour back. These things make you interpret that this was suicide. Okay, that simply means that simply means that the dead body was interpreted by coroners. Coroners are those people who actually tell the police people what was this after post-mortem. This is something that happens. They first come to the spot, they tell the policeman what could have been the possible case, and then they tend to verify it. Unfortunately, most of the time it happens. Okay, so what may not be suicide may actually turn out to be or may declared as suicide. So lot many interpretation goes into calling something a suicide. Till date, people are, like for example, if I were to take example of Sushant Singh Rajput here, it is still not verified in the sense or proven wrong whether it was suicide or a murder. Some people call it a murder. Okay. Some people call it suicide. I don't know what is that. But anyhow, why it is ethnomethodological study? What is ethnomethodology if you remember? Ethnomethodology simply tells us social order is illusion. Social order is illusion. And it is only with certain hints, certain norms, certain codes that you start thinking that this is what it is. Although it may not be real. For example, if I have put on a t-shirt and jeans and speaking in a manly language, you may call me a man. But maybe I'm a woman who just had a haircut and put on this red t-shirt, jeans, and trying to speak in a manly language. I mean, in order for something to exist in reality, it needs nothing but the interpretation of the other person. Okay. Otherwise, everything is illusion. It is a very dangerous critique of positive study. Okay. Telling us that science cannot tell us what is happening in reality. In the garb of objectivity, so many intersubjectivities have gotten hidden. Okay, this was the main idea of Atkinson. Okay. Third, B.B. Mohanty. In reality, write down, in reality, the types of suicide are not mutually exclusive. In reality, the types of suicide are not mutually exclusive. the case studies clearly highlight. What are those case studies? Something that I have just presented to you, and I'll also give it to you. The case studies clearly highlight how egoism and enemy led to the suicide. Okay, basically there is no clear-cut boundary in the real social world. Okay, you cannot differentiate exactly. This was B.B. Mohanty. Okay. Now tell me, did you not feel that after criticism, Durkheim is more clear to you? Yes, it happens. Okay, that is why criticism is very important. It actually helps in understanding that person only who is being critiqued. Now, second criticism, let me talk about social fact. Or let me talk about division of labor first. Division of labor. Do you know one thing? Very interesting thing. Durkheim is highly patriarchal. Highly patriarchal. This is what a feminist scholar is calling him. Okay. In his study of division of labor, he is critiqued as patriarchal man. Why? This is the question why. You must realize that when I was talking about division of labor, okay, I did not talk about women. Okay, in the sense it was all the study of men only. And it also tells us, see, you guys know this very well, that most of those people working in the workplaces were men only, and in those times women were literally absent in the workplaces. Okay, hardly 1 or 2% you would have found. 98% people were men. This scholar, feminist scholar, is telling me that when I read Durkheim's theory of division of labor, somehow it gives me an impression as if men are responsible for integration, men are responsible for disintegration, and women have no role in the society for integration or anything like that. It was only all those activities by men which led to anomy, or men are again reintegrating, division of labor is creating organic solidarity. Where are women? Where are women? It clearly tells us that integration between men is required for healthy society, and it clearly shows the society is highly patriarchal. वाह वाह क्या बात है. फेमिनिस्ट हो तो ऐसी हो, उखाड़ दे एकदम आदमी को, ठीक है, बोल ही नहीं पाएगा डरखाइन. So Durkheim was speechless. Okay. Her name is Lehman. Okay. You can refer your handouts also. Now, Durkheim also tells me one more thing. In traditional society, we had mechanical solidarity. In modern society, we will have organic solidarity. But life is not so simple. The problem is that in traditional society, he says we had mechanical solidarity. In complex modern societies, organic. But the problem is neither you can measure mechanical solidarity. There is no test available to measure mechanical solidarity. Okay, and to say that everybody had similar belief, similar taste, similar clothes, similar thinking, similar acting, you are just trying to fool the people. How? See, it does not happen. You know this very well. That whether you talk about modern society or any society, it cannot happen that all of them are similar. इतना ऐसे करोगे क्या प्रोजेक्ट को तुम अपने पीएचडी के? ठीक है, ऐसे नहीं होता है. Basically, even in traditional societies, we had organic solidarity. अगर ऐसा कुछ होता भी है, okay. Even in traditional societies, we had organic solidarity. And even in complex societies, we have mechanical solidarity. There cannot be binary opposites like this. How? Let me talk about globalization today. In those times, there was no literature on globalization, or there was no discourse of globalization per se. Okay. Today, we talk about nation states like G4, G7, RCEP, okay, TTP. Now, what are these? What is IBSA? Indian, Brazil, South Africa. What is BRICS? What are these groups? When you look into IBSA, you will find mechanical solidarity because this is South-South cooperation. Cooperation between seemingly similar economies. Don't you find it? India, Brazil, South Africa, almost similar economies, similar social composition, similar trouble, similar social problems. Okay. And South-South cooperation, that is why they are called as. Okay. IBSA, Indian, Brazil, South Africa. BRICS, if I talk about BRICS, these are not similar economies, literally. Okay. But this is organic solidarity. In the sense, not so similar economies have become interdependent upon each other, but this interdependence I cannot say was not present in IBSA also. In IBSA also they were interdependent. So how would you, there is no measure literally available to see what is similar, what is interdependence. These are very vague things, but if I were to really go by this vagueness only, then of course I'm highly open to talk in terms of globalization also. Okay. Remember one thing. If I ask you one simple question, globalization as a process has integrated nation states or created individual nation states? In the sense, literally created some superpowers. Okay. Both. During the times of lockdown, okay, when we were talking about vaccine nationalism, we exported vaccines also and we imported also. रशिया की स्पटनिक हम लेके आए, अपनी हम गंदी सी कोवैक्सीन बाहर भी दे रहे हैं, ठीक है. So both these things were happening, and this shows cooperation only, nothing else. Cooperation and interdependence as well. It is showing both the things. It is showing both mechanical solidarity. Why mechanical solidarity? Because all the people, whether in Russia or in India, were facing similar problems, similar concerns, similar losses, economic. अरे लॉकडाउन ने क्या किया, हम सबको सिमिलर बना दिया है. There is one scholar, Ulrich Beck. He says wealth is hierarchic, but what we also call as smog, is democratic. In the sense, wealth will divide you. Wealth will divide you. Someone would have high wealth, someone would have low wealth, but smog, धुंध is democratic in the sense, वो अमीर और गरीब में डिफरेंशिएट नहीं करती है, वो सबके घर पे जाती है. Coronavirus was nothing but a democratic virus in the sense it did not differentiate between rich or poor, black or white, underdeveloped or developed. It actually made all of us similar. All of us had similar concerns. We had similar lockdown. We had similar economic crisis. We all of us had become similar that way. And this similarity actually led to interdependence basically. It is not that similarity and interdependence are different. Similarity led to interdependence. Now, with this, am I criticizing Durkheim? No, I'm still talking in Durkheim's language only. I'm still talking in Durkheim's language only. Okay, it seems that I'm criticizing. No, I'm still using the social types and the models that he has given to us to criticize him. So how is it a criticism? It is not a criticism. Okay, so this is why he is classical scholar. He was always concerned with loss of cohesion, and he always, in his time, he spoke whatever he could. He did not foresee any coronavirus coming. So we cannot expect him to act like a god and tell every time be right. You can never be every time be right. Even natural scientists are not always right. So therefore, If he is being wrong, proven wrong, this also shows that he is scientific. Wah, kya baat hai. In the language of Karl Popper. So you would not be able to clearly say the things. Okay. So this was all about division of labor. Rest you can read from handouts also. Now, social facts. When I read social facts, it gives me one impression. Social fact tells me collective thinking, collective belief, collective acting, external to individual, coercive of the actors. Now, social fact theory gives me one impression that individuals do not exist. Okay, individuals are governed by external forces. Okay, individuals simply react to external stimuli. Okay. However, the problem is that social fact theory, if you look into clearly, it was critiqued by Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens. He has written one book, New Rules of Sociological Method. New Rules of Sociological Method. In this book, he clearly says that Durkheim forgot to talk about agency. Agency means individual will. Okay, individuals also have their own will. They are not always governed by structures. Okay, it does not happen in reality. Okay, for example, if religion governs me, how am I able to create a religion? See, like if I'm a Ambedkar, I have created new religion, but religion was governing me, but me creating a new religion is showing the power that I have. I have. I can make religion. I'm not always governed by religion. Okay. Language. Language is also a social fact. Okay. Language controls you. Language is over and above you. It exercises coercive power on you. When you are speaking, you would be highly conscious of all the grammatical errors that you might commit while speaking those things. So somehow language has a coercive power on you. You would be very cautious while speaking. Okay. And this automatically shows the power that it possesses over you. Can you change the language? Okay, no, you can. You can. Because right now I want to prove Durkheim wrong, so I will tell the opposite thing also. See, the things that we are talking, okay, the way we talk these days, okay, like, what's up? No, what's up is not an original part of the language, English language, but this shows that how individuals modify the language. How can they modify the language also? Lol, ruffle, or any acronym like these, okay, nonsense. So, hashtag, okay, hashtag was something our own invention. It did not exist in the language per se, but it has become part of our linguistics. Okay, the way we speak. Viral. Okay, viral in the sense, of course, it did not have that connotation the way we talk about something being viral these days. Okay, so it was our own invention only. So Twitter did not exist per se as a word, but now it is a word in Oxford Dictionary. So you would see that we construct language, we are not governed by language, we construct language also. Okay. And this is nothing but, Anthony Giddens calls it structuration theory. Okay, structuration theory. This is called as structuration theory. What is the meaning of structuration theory? It simply means, in a very simple language, it talks about duality of structure. What is the meaning of duality of structure? Duality of structure simply means structure regulates and is regulated also. Structure regulates and is regulated also. Regulated by individuals. Regulates whom? Individuals. And this shows that individuals are not simply passive robots being governed by structures. Individuals also have some power to change, modify the structures. Okay. Durkheim says, Durkheim tells me, family regulates individual. How would Durkheim explain breakdown of family? If family is really regulating factor, if family is a social fact which governs us, coerces us, how would he explain the breakdown of the structure of family that the world is witnessing now? Family after 100 or 200 years may not exist as a structure, may not. Okay. Our world is getting highly nuclear. We are moving towards nuclearity, and that is why live-in relationship, living apart together, and household, these things have replaced the concept of family. You know, household, remember I'm using one word, household. Household and family, these are two different things. Okay, you guys, if you guys are living in Delhi right now, or maybe in some PG, this is your household, this is not your family. Okay, this is household simply. Okay, household. Why you guys are living in household? Because of the aspirations that you have developed in the modern age. Individualism. Okay, you do not want to do the family business. You have developed your aspirations. Individualism. I want to become IAS. नहीं करना, मुझे दुकान पे नहीं बैठना आपकी. ओके, नहीं मेरे को पंचर नहीं लगाना, मुझे IAS बनना है. इंडिविजुअलिज्म आ गया है मेरे में. ठीक है, मैं बनूंगा IAS. Now that you want to become IAS, you have come to Delhi, and think about many people who would develop these kind of aspirations. They would come to Delhi. The number of households will increase. The moment households increase, what will happen? The people who are renting out their accommodations, okay, to the students, they would start building more households. And in the venture of building more and more households, they may start thinking more and more about money only. And this is what is happening also in Delhi. Okay, they are every year they are increasing the prices of the households. Okay, the rent, basically rent of the households. Okay, and they may start getting involved in the things which may lead to breakdown of the family. Okay, because of the money that they are earning because of the renting out of the household. I mean, there are many things which I don't want to talk about right now. Okay, because those are things that I would describe in when I will teach you family and all those things. Okay, so households are becoming new reality. Family as a concept is decreasing in the or losing strength. Okay, because of economic compulsions or aspirations that we are developing. Okay, or we are even delaying our marriages because of the aspirations that we have developed. And when you delay marriage, you delay the formation of family. Okay. Now, this was all about criticism of Durkheim. Elementary forms of religious life, I think one is left. See, there is one scholar, Robert Bella. Okay, he is not really a critique of Durkheim. He is highly inspired by Durkheim, highly inspired, and he believes that even in modern societies where we have individualism, aspirational individuals, okay, there are many things which ultimately integrate them. Many things, okay. Like for example, America is considered as highly individualist society, okay. But still, when it comes to the great pride of America, they unite once again, okay. For example, Donald Trump, when he was in power, he always had one agenda, okay. Americans should be the first, okay. Americans, when he would say anything like this, Americans should be the first. So whether you are American Google software engineer, whether you are American barista or a coffee maker, whether you are American truck driver, when he says American should be first, all the Americans unite. Yes, we will be first. होएंगे, हम first होएंगे. Okay. So this Americanism brings a great pride in them. And then people ask him, "Kaise? How will we be first? Tell me, please tell me." Then Donald Trump says, "Very easy. We are not going to allow any outsider come into our territory. Okay. We are going to establish wall all across the borders of America. Okay. Immigration cancel. Immigration cancel. Take." So this is how basically American pride, since Americans have lost their jobs, their own jobs, in the sense in the land of America, outsiders are coming, taking jobs, and we, the Americans, are losing our jobs. We have to restore the great pride that has been lost in the hands of previous presidents. Okay. Okay. So basically, Robert Bella says people may become individualist because of aspirations, but then there is one overarching civil religion, that is the rise of Americanism or nationalism, which is going to integrate all of them once again. Okay, this is the idea of Robert Bella. So he is not really a critique to Durkheim. He is simply inspired by the writings of Durkheim only. Okay. Now, there are many scholars like Jack Goody, okay, anthropologists mainly. They say the conception of sacred is highly temporal or spatial. Spatial or temporal. Like for example, have you seen that movie, Jhankar Beats? Has anyone seen that movie? Jhankar Beats. In that movie, there was one very popular song, "तू है आसमान में," sung by KK. तू है ऐसे वाला, ठीक है, वो गाना नहीं चाहता, बड़ा गंदा लगेगा. "तू है आसमान में," that song was actually picturized in church. Okay, that song was picturized in church. In church, you would not find people singing like that with guitar, all those things. Church is highly sacred place. Okay, but that sacred place had converted into a profane, in the sense ordinary place, when it was picturized for a movie. Okay, once all these people had dispersed, then people again gathered and that light was lit. Okay, and then all that prayer, usual prayer, had again once again begun. So then it became sacred. So sacred is highly temporal concept, in the sense nothing remains sacred forever. The fact is, Durkheim also said this. So this does not amount to be called as criticism. That is why I am saying that classical scholars cannot be critiqued. He said, Durkheim clearly said, for something to be sacred, collective belief, collective gathering, collective effervescence, all these things have to be there. He is not saying what is sacred will remain sacred forever. Okay, but still you can write Jack Goody's name just because he thinks he has critiqued Durkheim. Does not matter. You can write his name. Okay. So, this was all about Durkheim is over. Okay, now is the turn for next scholar. So, let me take one small break first. 3:30. Any problem in Durkheim so far? Okay, I don't think any problem would be there now because you have handouts also now. Easily understand. So while writing answers on unit 4, can we have two write dynamic examples case studies so as to substantiate the thinkers? So, see, Harsh, suppose I am writing the exam with you. Okay, let's suppose. If I write case studies and you do not, your answer may be right, but my answer will be more right. That is the only difference. Both of us are right. Some are more right, some are less right. Okay, just like George Orwell said in his book Animal Farm, all are equal, some are more than others. Okay, so this is how difference comes in scoring. Some may score 250, some may score 280. You know, to be very honest, when someone would ask me, okay, to be very honest, this is what happens. When someone would ask me, for example, someone has given 2 attempts, he could not score 270 or 80. So if he would ask me, sir, how to score 280, the question is absurd. The question is absurd. Okay. Why? Because I do not know. I do not know literally. Arey, how would I know? I did not check the paper. I do not know what is the problem they might have found in your answer. I do not know what have you written in the hall. And what you have written and what you are telling me, both would be highly different because you yourself do not remember what you have written. Okay. So this is so subjective question. Such a subjective question. So what can be done? What can be done? We should always follow certain rules while writing the answer. Okay, so that there is no scope of, or at least subjectivities get minimized. Okay, what are those rules? The rules, let me, in talking about that rule, since some meeting is also going on and I have to be a member of that meeting. So let me ask you one question. Let me see how do you approach that question? Okay. See, now you will see the difference. All of you will see the difference. Okay. I am going to write one question here and see how all your answers are going to be different. Okay. Despite studying from the same person and reading same notes, or you might have also referred some other books. Okay. Keeping all those things constant, let me ask you one question. What are the problems in observing social facts? This is the question. अब क्या होएगा अब? Okay, let us assume the question is of 10 mark. This question came last year only, UPSC. Okay, 150 word. Now you have certain knowledge on social facts. Okay, how would you approach this question? This question is not a repeated question, new question. Okay, and you should be prepared for any new questions. Would be there from static only, but then you would have to think on those lines only. Okay, you will find the answer. Basically यहाँ की जगह वो पकड़ के ऐसे उधर से पूछ रहे हैं, कुछ नहीं है. Okay, you would have to think what is going to be the answer to this question, what is going to be the structure of this question, what are the keywords. Just take 1 minute time and think of the structure. 1 minute only. Just think of structure. What should be the structure of this question? इनविजिबल, ओके, ठीक है, और सोचो, एक 1 मिनट टाइम। I can see only few things in this question. I am not able to read the question. Okay. I can see only few keywords. Problems and observing social facts. Nothing else. This is what I can see. So, if someone is asking me problems with my car, I will first have to tell him about the car at least, okay, briefly. Okay, but I cannot tell him when did I purchase the car, where did I exactly go to purchase the car, what was the conversation that we had before purchasing the car. History is not relevant while answering 10 mark questions. Okay, so social facts, I'll quickly define social fact first. Okay, without any flowery presentation, quote, etc., does not matter. Trust me, at the end of the day, all of you will forget all those quotes. Okay, but one structure that has to be always followed, irrespective of your knowledge, whether you are in first attempt or last attempt. Trust me, it is only the convenience with which evaluator is going to read your answer is something that is going to reward you. If you make it complex for him to understand your answer, you are not going to win this war. You have to make the job easier for him. And how can you make the job easier for him? You start directly with definition of social fact. What is the definition of social fact? Simply you will say by collective thinking, belief, acting, okay, external to individual, and coercive of factors. Okay, how many marks did I get just by writing this? 1 mark. 1 mark I have already gotten. Okay, when you write something, you should know how much marks you have gotten now. Okay, in your mind. 1 mark is booked for you. Booked. Now you will get 0.5. Let us assume like this. Okay, if there is any objective criteria, let us assume like this. You can get 1.5 when you write, for example, simple. भाई एग्जाम्पल तो दो उसको, जो तुमने बोला है उसको नहीं समझ आ रहा है, क्या कह रहे हो तुम? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फैमिली, कास्ट, nation. Okay, 1.5 marks I got. Okay. Now the struggle, remember, the max that you are going to get in a 10 mark is 6. 60% generally in humanities, you get 60% only. Even in DU or JNU, you do not get 80% or 70. That is sure. Okay. Now I have got 1.5. But my target is 6 marks, which means I need to get 4.5 marks or, okay, 4.5 more marks. What to do? Obviously, I know I have not addressed the question yet. How can I expect 6 marks? After giving example of social fact, I will simply write Emile Durkheim, the main scholar who has talked about social fact. Emile Durkheim described the subject matter of sociology as study of social fact in his book Rules of Sociological Method. This is what we often call as introduction to your body. This is not body per se. Okay, body requires criticism, but you are giving introduction, a very brief introduction. Okay, 2 lines only, and that is very highly targeted, to the point. Okay, not giving a lot of explanation. Okay, with this, I have secured 2 marks, half mark, a well-defined introduction to the body, 2 marks. Now I'm left with 4 marks. Okay. What will I do? I have told the examiner this social fact was discussed in his book Rules of Sociological Method. The next line that I will write is, this book clearly laid out scientific procedure to conduct study of social phenomena in empirical fashion. In empirical fashion. Okay, again, only I'm extending the intro. Okay, still not address the body part. And by now, I would have written approximately, out of 150 word, I have written approximately 40 words. Still I'm left with 110. Okay, and now comes the real point. 110 exact bullet. ठीक है, ध्यान में रखना है. Okay, अभी मेरे जो marks हैं वो 2 ही हैं. I have not gotten 2.5 right now because I have only extended the body. Okay, now what will I do? I'll describe. The first rule was to treat social fact as things. If you remember, Durkheim laid out in his book how to observe social fact, and he clearly said how to observe social fact. First, treat the social fact as things. This is what he said in his book, the first rule. Okay, he said the first rule was to treat social fact as things. And once treated as things, our preconceived notions and values should be sidelined. Okay, now I have written 60 words. Still the answer is missing. Okay, still the answer is missing. I have written 60 words. Now I am left with 90 words. However, here comes, okay, the main answer. I clearly said, however is that one word which is going to make the answer explicit in the eyes of examiner. However, values, opinions, or ideologies, whatever you may call it, influence the, first of all, not only the topic of research, something that you guys know, but also conclusion of the research. Okay, This is the first problem in observing social fact. The first problem in observing social fact. Somehow the ideologies, values, okay, these things influence you while conducting a research. Okay, like for example, if I am a Hindu scholar, Hindu, and I am talking about Hinduism as a social fact and not writing anything about Lord Ram, or letting my values about Lord Ram being visible, is very difficult task for me. To maintain restraint, or to refrain from letting your values or ideologies come into your research, is a very difficult task. Okay, howsoever hardcore sociologist you may be in the lines of on the lines of Durkheim. Okay, so the first problem is values, opinions, ideologies influence the topic of research also, but also the conclusion of the research. Okay, second problem. What could be the second problem in treating social fact as things? Tell me. What could be the second problem in treating social fact as things? Defining social fact and aligning criticism with respect to the features and the rules. Arun Raja, yes, it cannot be measured. Okay. Something which I just told you, social regulation, social integration, these are the forces, social facts. These things cannot be measured. Okay, not measurable. Social facts cannot be measured empirically. Cannot be measured empirically. In the sense, they are not observable. First, they are not you do not observe family, you do not observe caste, you do not observe nation. Okay, and still you talk about nationalism causing rise of integration force. These things are not visible. How would you measure integration force is rising, okay, or declining? These things cannot be measured. Okay, and since it cannot be measured, third, it cannot be tested. It cannot be tested. Okay, you cannot test these things. Okay, fact and value cannot be separated. Yes, something that I've already written here. Okay, you cannot separate values from the fact, the topic of research, the data collection. Okay, and all those things are influencing you, influencing your research. Okay. Fourth problem. Okay, fourth problem. There is no measure to call a social fact as normal or abnormal. It is completely, when I'm saying this is normal social fact, this is abnormal social fact, you guys agree to me when I say this is normal and abnormal social fact. But why did you agree with me? Because you also share these things which I'm saying. Okay, so unless you agree, social facts are not normal. Your agreement actually is making it normal. Okay, in the sense, anything that seems normal social fact to you, like for example, terrorism. Terrorism, I would say it is present everywhere, therefore it is normal. But how would you measure when the rate of terrorism is increasing? I mean, when does it amount to be called as pathological? How is there any measure to say that now it is pathological or it is normal? What is that rate which when increases, then it becomes from normal to abnormal? There is no measure available. Okay. So you cannot differentiate easily this is normal social fact or pathological. Okay. When we read Durkheim, yes, it makes sense. But when it comes to criticizing, these things obviously do not make sense. Okay. There is no measure. No measure available to delineate normal and pathological social fact. Okay. Next, Durkheim talks about cause and function of social fact. Okay, you know what is the problem? To say that collective effervescence is the cause of religion. Acha. And what is the cause of collective effervescence? Collective gathering. What is the cause of collective gathering? Shared conception of sacred. Okay. What is the cause of shared conception of sacred? Collective consciousness. That is why they have shared. Okay. Acha. What is the cause of collective consciousness? You will reach a point where you're not able to find another social fact being a cause of social fact. Eventually. Okay. It may take time, but it is nothing but a repetitive, it is a rhetoric. He's saying one thing only. Cause of social fact is another social fact. अच्छा इसका भी cause वही है, इसका भी वही है, इसका भी वही है. भाई कब तक? Okay, there will be a point where you would not be able to trace any more social fact behind this social fact. Okay, so it simply means that in this statement you are not able to differentiate between cause, okay, and in the sense, for example, Durkheim talks about two things. One is cause, second is function. Okay, cause obviously you cannot keep tracing up till infinite. Okay, function, when he talks about function, see, to be very honest, when I read Durkheim, he tells me about function of crime also. Okay, the function of religion also, function of division of labor also. He's talking about function. But the fact is there any measure available to test the function of these things? Can you say that religion is really integrating us? There is no measure available. Okay, so again, there is no empirical test available to measure the cause or the function of these things. We are simply understanding these things only with the help of our common sense. So it is actually common sense of a man which is helping him to understand sociology of Durkheim. Okay, so, and Durkheim's aim was to differentiate his sociology from a common sense or a psychological thinking. But without our understanding of the world, which is common sense, we cannot understand Durkheim. Okay, he is just simply taking our common sense for granted for him to make us understand his sociology. Okay, so therefore, cause and function cannot be tested. Cannot be tested. Okay. Basically, criticism. It is nothing but a criticism of social fact. Okay. So once I have written these 5, more than enough. With some example also. Okay, whatever I told you, with briefly you have to write also those examples. Okay, and you will realize that you have already crossed 130 by now. You are on the second page. Okay, if you will calculate all these words, you will see that 130 would have been crossed and you would have reached second page. Okay, and after this comes the conclusion part. After this comes the conclusion part. Okay, because the question was observing problems in observing social fact, and I told you many times, when we observe these people, we have to rid ourselves of the preconceived notions. It is not very easy task to rid ourselves of the preconceived notions or values. Okay, and this is obviously a problem in observing social fact. How do you rid yourself of all the preconceived notions? Okay, something that I addressed in the first point itself. Okay, now in the conclusion, what will you do? You have criticized Durkheim. You have introduced Durkheim, then you criticized him. But in conclusion, You will still support Durkheim. Remember this. Always, it is just like a dialectics that is going on in your answer. Do you know what is dialectics? Dialectics means dia means two people. Two. Dia. Lectics. Two people in conversation with each other. Think like this. Okay. So when you are writing, somehow your body is writing a body of the answer, but your soul is resisting your body. And your soul wants to counter your body. Okay. And that is why you would always find yourself presenting a thesis and then countering it with another part, that is antithesis. Okay. So you present a thesis and then you counter it with antithesis, but then comes the synthesis. In conclusion, synthesis. Okay. What is the conclusion that you have drawn from these two opposite conversations? Okay. Conclusion is that social fact, basically the study of social fact, established the signs of society. Establish the signs of society. Establish the signs of society. And science in itself is not objective anymore. Lyotard. Khatam. Khatam. Here, neither I have criticized Durkheim nor I have appreciated his study on social fact. I have located myself at the middle of these two things. I have told to the examiner, with this, signs of society got established. And then I'm telling science in itself is not objective. And then I'm also quoting one scholar to support this statement, Lyotard. Science, the end of meta-narrative. Okay, science is also talking very randomly and in a nonsensical fashion these days. The findings of sciences are also getting invalidated every day. Okay, so this is how I would finish my answer. Now I would get 5.5 or maybe 6. Depends on my presentation also, how I have presented my debate. Okay. Okay. So let us do one thing. Let us start off with marks tomorrow only, because I have to go for a meeting also. Okay. And remember, you guys have to do one thing. You have to do one thing. You have to read NCERT class 11, Introducing Sociology. Read chapter, not Introducing Sociology, it was Understanding Sociology, basically, the book name, class 11. Understanding Society, maybe. Okay. In that book, you have a chapter on Western thinkers. Okay. Emile Durkheim, Karl Marx, and Max Weber. Try to read Karl Marx today from that chapter, hardly 2 or 3 pages. Okay. ये क्या है? Adarsh Gupta. Sir, please take my doubts, which are many today. They are. Sir, is yogic exercise a science now? I'm no one to say that. Okay. I'm no one to say that. If I have to answer this question, okay, I would take the help of Karl Popper and I would reject the label of science here. Okay. I would say yoga exercise, pseudoscience cannot be tested. It cannot be tested that whatever you have gained, good health, good mental peace, all that was only because of yoga. There is no empirical measure available in my hand to test whether the health that you have gained, the figure that you have gained was because of yoga. Okay, there is no direct test available in my hand to prove this thing wrong. Okay. If yes, can we hear sacred? अरे क्यों? Yes कहाँ से? Yes कहाँ से? if yes, अरे if yes कहाँ से भाई? Only no. भाई, I am talking on behalf of Karl Popper. It is not yes. And I have also shared one newspaper article with you, clearly telling you that yogic practice of collective consciousness is pseudoscience. And there the author also cited Karl Popper Imre Lakato to justify his statement. Okay. So I am no one. There is economic suicide in migrant laborers due to lack of laws by government for their concerns. Of course, if you remember, when lockdown was imposed, what happened? Labor laws were suspended. And the suspension of labor law clearly tells us that laborers, obviously, they would not feel integrated with the state, because they would feel when they need the state the most, the embodiment of morality according to Durkheim, when we need the state the most, this state is not looking at us, suspending the labor laws, clearly favoring the bourgeoisie in the name of ease of doing business. Okay, so they do not feel integrated, they commit suicide. They go back to their homes without caring for their lives. Sir, can farmer suicide be classified as anomie as well as fatalist at same time? Remember one thing. Remember one thing. Do not talk about fatalism. Okay, although I have taught you all the 4 types, try not to talk about fatalism, because Durkheim himself never gave so much importance to fatalist suicide. Okay. And also remember one more thing. When you describe the suicides, always write different example in each of them. ऐसा मत करना कि फार्मर सुसाइड ऑल्ट्रोइस्टिक भी है, ईगोइस्टिक भी है, दिखा दिया कैसे भी जबरदस्ती फोर्सफुली, ऐसे नहीं. The studies which have been conducted, they do not do that. Okay, they have clear cut empirical study before them, and then they conclude what kind of suicide is this. Okay, with all the observation, they convince us. Okay, although that is a different thing, it cannot be tested, but they convince us with inductive reasoning. Yes. Okay, so कभी एक सुसाइड को 2 टाइप में मत डालना. Always you should have different example for each type. Sir, did Atkinson do any breaching experiment to qualify for ethnomethodology? नहीं. See, कैसे समझाऊं? देखो, I told you that ethnomethodology is a branch of phenomenology. Okay, that means the larger philosophy is similar. Social order to both of them would be illusion only. Okay. Now, conducting breaching experiment explicitly is something that he did not do. But still he is regarded as ethnomethodologist, because he is telling us how we construct reality, how we actually came to know that this is suicide. It was only because of the help of suicide note, the messages, that we started checking off. Why are we doing this? Because we believe that these are the clues that can help us understand this is suicide. So it is our behavior that is making us understand this is suicide. Otherwise, suicide does not exist. These notes, this rope, this fan, this ceiling, this laptop, the messages in the laptop, these things are giving us this illusion that it is a suicide. It is not objective reality. This is why ethnomethodological. Okay. Or you may also call it phenomenological. There is no issue in that. Okay. These are not so hard line difference or hardcore differences. Sir, did Atkinson, ये तो हो गया. Sir, I could not understand methodological dualism with respect to positivism from one thing I did not teach you, reflexive methodology, reflexive sociology, thinking that you will understand all over on your own. You know, but then again, asking, okay, so I should not be thinking like this, na, that I can rely on you or your intelligence. What is methodological dualism? If I am a positivist scholar, what does it mean? That I have to maintain separation from the object of research. Isaac Newton did not fall in love with the apple. It was simply an apple. Researcher has to maintain separation. A clear-cut separation has to be there between knower and the known. This is what? This is methodological dualism. Okay, dualism in the sense researcher completely different, researched or the object of research completely different. Okay, what is methodological monism? What is methodological monism? When you do not see a clear-cut separation between you and the object of your research. Okay, when you start treating not him like an object but a meaningful conscious being, you start understanding the concerns, you start feeling what he is feeling. When you start feeling what he is feeling, you and he both are not different, both of you are located in one place, and you report like that only. You are not reporting like a scientist clearly uh, oblivion to the concerns of the object of research. Okay, you are now from being sympathetic, you are now entering into the era, or the not era but the domain of empathy. Okay, both of them are different. समझ गए अब आदर्श, शुभम? What are the max marks given out of 10 or 20? Just think it like this. The fact is I do not know. Okay, but the general trend, if you see, you will see 60%, in the sense you get 6 out of 10 and 12 out of 20. If you calculate all the 12s out of 20, supposedly you have gotten 12 in all the questions out of 20 and 6 in all the 10s, you will realize that you are not crossing 300. Then how come 300 is crossed? If in case it is crossed because of a process called as normalization. What happens is, in the exam, in the mains exam, you have different sort of options being chosen by different kind of individuals. The objects cannot be leveled. The subjects cannot be leveled. In the sense, sociology cannot be compared with mathematics. Okay, so there has to be a process of normalization also, which has to be factored in while calculating the final score. Okay, that may be on the upper side, that may be on the lower side. Sorry, science is religion. नहीं समझा आदर्श में, सोहिनी गांगुली. Shadow pandemic can be written under suicide. Yes, shadow pandemic can be written under suicide. The people who do not know what is shadow pandemic, simply understand one thing. Okay, you guys during the lockdown were so much tensed. When this lockdown will get over, when will we go back to our friends, when will we have chai, pakoda and all those enjoyments. Okay, think of women who have been persistently for so many years living in lockdown. Okay, women, to the women, traditional women I'm talking about. Okay, emotional nahi hona hai. To the traditional women, that home where you feel isolated, that home is the place where she feels entertained. Okay, so she has been in perpetual lockdown since forever because she never actually went outside, unlike you guys who have been privileged enough to get modern education or to develop those aspirations and to move out or to think of joining IFS. Okay, she has been living in perpetual isolation or lockdown. This is shadow pandemic. Shadow pandemic in the sense, not pandemic per se, shadow. A shadow in the sense of something that has been escaped from the eyesight of social scientist. Okay, this is the feminist critique to lockdown or the feminist perspective to lockdown. Okay, and what happened? He was the victim of domestic violence or abuse. Of all those people who had gone back in the name of reverse migration, when they went back, these people literally abused and bashed the women. And domestic violence cases, if you remember, actually increased during the lockdown. Yes, can be written under suicide basically. This is what I'm trying to say, Sohini. Okay. Pranshu. Feminist scholars followed monism. ऐसा नहीं है प्रांशु, फेमिनिज्म के भी कई टाइप्स हैं. अभी तो बस इतना ही समझो कि मोनिज्म क्या है और डुअलिज्म क्या है. आगे जाके जब हम फेमिनिज्म पढ़ेंगे तो और चीजें पता चलेंगी. ओके, बेसिकली मैं चाहता नहीं हूँ कि अभी आप ऐसे सोच लो फेमिनिज्म इज इक्वल टू मोनिज्म. मतलब मैं चाहता हूँ आपका दिमाग बस खुला रहे जब तक हम ये कवर नहीं करते हैं कुछ चीजें. ओके, आदर्श गुप्ता सर, इज योगा एक्सरसाइज अ रिलीजन नाउ? इफ यस, कैन वी से हियर सेक्रेड इक्वल टू हेल्थ एंड टोटम इज ह्यूमन बॉडी? क्योंकि भाई मैं तो ऑनेस्टली दिल से बोलूं, इफ यू टेक हेल्प ऑफ डरखाइम्स आइडिया ऑफ रिलीजन, it can be considered as religion. Yogic exercise, if you take help of Durkheim, it can be considered as religion. Okay, गलती से साइंस लिख दिया था सर, सॉरी सर फॉर मिस्टेकिंग क्वेश्चन, थैंक्स फॉर एड्रेसिंग ऑल क्वेश्चंस पेशेंटली, वेलकम। Saurav, can I also make flowchart beside definition? Yes, Saurav, you can. Rohini, thank you sir. Pranchu, thank you sir. Chalo, we'll see you tomorrow then. Read Karl Marx from NCERT.